The murder of Sophie Toscan du Plantier in Ireland. In the quiet heart of West Cork, nestled along the rugged Irish coast, lies Schull, a village known for its natural beauty, its peaceful way of life, and the rich stories of its past. But in December of 1996, Schull would be thrust into a tragic and unrelenting tale that would captivate the world. A story of mystery, heartbreak, and relentless pursuit of justice. Sophie Toscan du Plantier, a French film producer, was not a resident of Schull, but had fallen in love with its solitude. It was here, in this remote corner of Ireland, that Sophie would spend her holidays. Yet, in the early hours of December 23, 1996, her life would come to a brutal and violent end. Sophie was born in Paris in 1957, and, through her work in the film industry, she had created a name for herself. Her marriage to Daniel Toscan du Plantier, a well-known French film producer, brought her further into the limelight. But despite her public success, Sophie was a woman who craved peace and respite from the demands of her busy life. Was elegant and warm-hearted, but she had a quiet nature. She loved her time in Ireland because it was an escape. It was her refuge. Schull was her sanctuary. Here, Sophie would spend weeks each year at a secluded home, far from the pressures of the city. But in the dead of night, on that fateful December night in 1996, that peace would be shattered forever. On the night of December 23, Sophie was alone in her house. Her husband, Daniel, was in Paris. She had spoken to her mother earlier that evening, and there was nothing to suggest that anything was amiss. But hours later, a violent event would tear through the silence of this remote countryside. At approximately 3:30 a.m., Sophie was attacked outside her home. She had been struck repeatedly with a blunt object, leaving her bloodied and unconscious in the driveway. The brutal nature of the attack would soon become clear: a savage beating, a crime that seemed deeply personal in its intensity. It was a violent, almost frenzied assault. The sheer force of the blows indicated a deep rage. The crime scene was chaotic. Sophie's body was discovered the following morning by a neighbor, who went to check on her after not hearing from her. The sight of her lifeless body, sprawled in the driveway, left the small village in shock. Cut to police footage of the crime scene and interviews with investigators. Immediately, the investigation began. Who could have been responsible for such a heinous act in this otherwise peaceful town? For months, the police worked tirelessly, searching for clues, interviewing potential witnesses, and trying to piece together the puzzle. Cut to an image of Ian Bailey, the British journalist living in Schull. One name would repeatedly surface in the investigation: Ian Bailey. A British journalist, living in the area, who had been in Schull for several years. Bailey was known to have had a somewhat peculiar relationship with Sophie. He was one of the first people to be questioned. There were reports of him being seen near Sophie's house on the night of the murder. His behavior was unusual. He was known to have a volatile temper and a somewhat contentious history. Cut to Ian Bailey speaking in an interview with the press after the investigation began. "I had no part in what happened to Sophie. I didn't even know her well. Yes, I saw her around town, but that's it. It's all just a horrible misunderstanding." Headlines flash on screen. Sophie Toscan du Plantier murder. Journalist arrested, Ian Bailey, the suspect. As the investigation continued, so did the media coverage. The spotlight on Ian Bailey grew more intense, and soon he became the prime suspect. But despite mounting evidence, his presence near the scene, his conflicting statements, and a pattern of violent behavior, the case faced a number of complications. Bailey was arrested and charged with Sophie's murder in 1997, but in 2001, a trial concluded without a conviction. He was found not guilty by an Irish court, and yet, the mystery remained. The lack of physical evidence linking Bailey directly to the crime made a conviction difficult. The prosecution simply couldn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Even after the trial, we knew Ian Bailey was the one who killed Sophie. It's been heartbreaking to have to fight for justice for her. She deserves it. While Irish courts failed to convict Bailey, Sophie's family continued their battle. In 2019, a French court found Ian Bailey guilty of her murder in absentia, sentencing him to 25 years in prison. Although Bailey has never been extradited to France to serve the sentence, the verdict brought a measure of closure to Sophie's family. Scene 6. The aftermath and legacy. Cut to interviews with locals in Skull, many of whom still remember Sophie. It was a tragedy. Sophie was such a kind person. She didn't deserve this. The town still feels the shock of what happened. Sophie's murder left a lasting scar on the small community of Skull. Her family, friends, and the local people continue to live with the memory of that cold December night. And while justice remains elusive in some ways, the memory of Sophie Toscan du Plantier, a woman who sought peace and beauty, lives on. Closing scene. Slowly fade to the quiet waves lapping against the shores of Skull, the mist rolling in as evening approaches. Sophie Toscan du Plantier's death remains an unresolved tragedy, one that continues to haunt those who loved her and those who were affected by her untimely demise. The murder of Sophie in the idyllic beauty of Ireland's West Cork serves as a stark reminder that even in the most peaceful places, darkness can strike, fade to black. In the end, some stories are never fully told, and some questions never answered. End credits roll.